Welcome to Famous DJ Academy. I think this is about our fourth workshop. So I hope everybody's been enjoying it. We've been putting the content up online, but thank you guys for attending. This is also going to be up online later. So if you guys forget anything or anybody, if you want to share it with anybody, I think that would actually help us a lot. If you guys can please share this later, that'd be awesome. We're going to put it up online at famousdjacademy.com. So first, we're going to give a big shout out to Orbit Event Rentals. That's this facility right here. Thank you guys for having us. A little quick thing about Orbit Event Rentals. Orbit aims to serve customers' needs through the quality of their customer service and rental equipment. Orbit can assist you with any event from complex street fairs to elegant weddings and more. With a large inventory of rental equipment, Orbit can fulfill the needs of your event no matter the size or location. The event staff will guide you through the planning process, including the labor and logistical requirements of your event. Give Orbit a call and let them show you how they can take your event off the ground and into orbit. Shoo! That's nice. That was a cool.
That wasn't planned. That wasn't planned.
It was planned. We rehearsed.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. So today we have a very special guest. One of my personal friends, amazing.
Hey, te querés,
or maybe he's not a friend. I think he's just maybe he just came to collect a check. Well, no, we're friends, right? Please tell me we're friends. We're friends. All right, yeah. So
please say that.
I did. Come on, my parents are here. Please. All right, amazing DJ and producer. He's been making noise in the dance music scene since 2011. His versatility and ability to adapt in different genres within EDM has made him a true OG. He's performed at the biggest festivals across the globe, like EDC, Ultra, Tomorrowland, just to name a few, with releases on labels like Barong Family, Spinnin Records, Buygore, Bassrush, Mad Decent. You can hear his music being played out on every and any platform, especially by him and his colleagues alike, all through festival sets. He also mixes nationwide on Diplo's Revolution channel on Sirius XM, with his notable NOTMYTEMPO brand. Along with festivals, he's held down clubs across the country. Please welcome, et cetera, et cetera. Can we make some noise? Round of applause.
Damn, what an intro, man.
Right?
Thank you.
I wrote that myself.
Oh,
so
shit,
I hope
man.
we're yeah, I wrote that, so yeah,
Thank
man.
you, man.
You've done a lot, bro. Honestly, when I had to include everything, I was like, dude, I got to throw in this, I got to throw in that, and it came a little long, but that's just because how successful you are, bro. So, what we're here to learn today, or what we want to know is basically the journey, how you got here. People want to know what it takes, So if what we can do for the people, if we can just take it back and just take it back to what inspired you to even do this in the first place, I think that's a big part of, what made you decide to become, et cetera, et cetera. What was your first interest in music in general, you know what I mean?
Well, like any other kid, I grew up listening to music. I'm Hispanic, so every weekend when my mom was cleaning the house, there was just music blasting, whether it was, bandas or cumbias or whatever it was, bands. My mom used to play bands too, like Bee Gees, whatever it was. Like that was my go-to. So like growing up, I always loved music, like I didn't start picking up interest in music until I was probably the beginning of high school. And then that's when I bought a guitar. When I say bought, I didn't buy it. I jacked some money from someone.
Yeah, you borrowed.
I borrowed some money.
Yeah, you borrowed your homie's guitar.
Yeah, and then I got a guitar,
and
then I kind of learned myself. I kind of figured, like by ear, I learned how to play, and then I tried to join my friend's band. They said no, and then later they needed a bassist, and I was like, I'll play bass. And I didn't know how to play bass, so I bought a bass, and like I figured out how to play bass. So yeah, it was just in bands, man. Just growing up, just wanting to play music, and
so you started off at playing actual instruments and playing gigs.
Yeah. So
doing
like
the whole band,
doing the whole thing. Yeah. So I started playing guitar, and then I joined the band playing bass, and then I ended up somehow I bought a drum set, and I used to live. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and then my mom ended up. I don't know how she ended up getting a 6-bedroom apartment. Weird, right?
That's a big apartment.
It's a fucking big apartment. And like, I think what it was 2 apartments, and they blew the wall, and because I had one whole area, which is probably as big as this, and I think it was like the living room. So I ended up getting a drum set. I don't know, I forgot how I got the drum set, but I got a drum set, and then I started doing everything myself. Like I got a Tascam, and I started, recording the drum bass, and then like everything. I even tried to sing, and I was like, nah.
Yeah, I feel you, bro. Because I started in bands too. So I think like that early on phase of getting into instruments and stuff, I think is so influential just because that's what kind of really gets you to dive into music, but not just music, listening, but like being a part of it and creating.
Yeah.
And I think it really does play a big part in the way you can eventually develop into being a producer, because that's kind of what you're doing when you're playing live. You're producing on the fly.
Right,
You know what I mean? That's
So yeah,
cool, man.
so I was in those bands growing up, and like they were like my elementary friends. And then once I joined the band, we started like doing local shows. Like we did Key Club, I think we did the Roxy.
So you did like the Sunset Strip,
Yeah.
whole thing.
So like we did the Knitting Factory. Like we did those things. The band was called Roswell Parade. Shout out Roswell. You guys deep dive.
Wow.
And YouTube, you'll find
so now
one
we
video.
know. Roswell Parade.
Yeah, Roswell Parade,
Well,
and it
I'm
was
gonna
like
look that up for sure.
it was not good. It was like
Yeah.
we were kind of like the opposite of Mars Volta. Like we were kind of like where Mars Volta feels like everyone's playing a different thing, but it's like all in sync. We were all playing different things.
Okay.
So yeah, so we started doing that, and then eventually the band, like we kind of everyone went their separate ways, and then I still was working on music. I had my job, and then I would come home and work on music every night, and and then at that point I got a computer, and then I started recording
Right.
into the computer and stuff like that.
Yeah, see, when I was in bands, it was awesome, but I think it's just such a hard thing to kind of have, like either 4 or 5 dudes, kind of like you got to like align your schedule, and you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to work it out with so many people that once, that kind of maybe fizzles out or something, that and you actually having a passion for it, having a laptop and really being able to, you could program your own drums, you could program your own bass player, and then basically as a DJ you're kind of like a one-man band. There's this interview with Jim Morrison. Are you a Jim Morrison fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interview with Jim Morrison back in the 60s where he says that he thinks the future of music is just it's just one man doing everything. And I think he kind of saw that, right? Yeah. That's cool, man. So you said you started off with the laptop, and did you start off?
It wasn't a laptop. It was
or-
what happened was I ended up getting a computer, and it was
Okay,
like
a
the old
computer,
school.
yeah.
It was an old school Mac. Like remember the egg shaped ones?
Yeah,
Like
they were
it was like
colorful or
green.
something?
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
they had
green.
colors. Yeah, okay.
So that's the one I got, and then I ended up downloading I somehow I got the Tascam on the Mac, and then I was starting to record into it. And then I was doing the live stuff still, like recording on it, and then I was exporting it down to a mini disc player. You remember the mini discs?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was putting it in that and listening to it, and then I'd be, letting people listen to it.
Were you like passing out demo tapes?
No,
like
no,
on-
no, no.
like on
Just to
Venice
like,
Beach or something?
no, because
I'm like,
because I wasn't at that point. Like I still had a job, and I never thought like this could be a career. For me, it was just always like this is fun. I like playing music. On the weekends, maybe I'll play music. You know what I mean? Whatever. So it was just for family. I was like, hey, check this out. What do you think? They'd be like, it fucking sucks. And then I was just like, cool. Like, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how because also at that point, like I didn't know about like mixing. I mean, I still kind of don't know, but like it was just me playing like at all levels. So everything just sounded kind of crappy. And yeah, that's how
I think what's really interesting, man, is like you saying that you just have this passion for it, where you were doing it on your extra time, like on your free time, where you had a job. And I think a lot of people, or just like young DJs and producers, they think that right away, right off the jump, like you got to make this your job, or like this is what all you do 100%. But like that's not really what it is. It's more about being passionate about it, and like you just do it on your free time just because that's what you love to do. It's not about trying to do it and make it your job on the fly. Like right
some
away.
people do. I mean, some people go to school for that. You know what I mean? Just because they wanna make a career out of it, right? But for me, like it was just the band broke up. Well, we didn't break up. Like one of them had a kid, and then I was like, one of them like would come in super high, and then the drummer was like, me and the drummer were like the only ones who were like, let's fucking make music. And I was the one that was setting up these shows. Like I was the one that was like, all right, like we gotta sell tickets. Like I was the one that set up all these other shows. And then we got some money, and then the money thing became an issue because someone ended up taking the money. It became a thing, and I was just like, fuck this, I'm doing this by myself. And then I was into this band called Melodrone, shout out Melodrone, and we became good friends, and he made music himself, like, and when he would play live, like he would loop everything, and he was just playing
Okay.
himself.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, damn, that's what I want to do. So then that's what I tried to do, and it was not nowhere near what he was doing.
I see. And so when you got your computer, right? So you said you were on a mini player, but what was like the next set of gear? Was there like a program that you started off with?
Yeah, so on that computer, I was able to download Reason. I
Yeah.
downloaded Reason on there, and I could not figure, even till this day, I do
Yeah,
not know how
Reason's a
to.
little
Reason
strange.
is like,
it's cool, it's great,
yeah.
but you know,
So I was using Reason, and I was like, everything I was doing kind of sounded like Walmart sound, like Play School. It was like quink, 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 like super weird. And I was like, man, I can't get the right sound. And I didn't know, like, at that point, like, how to like fuck with stuff. You know what I mean? So I was just picking up like presets and like trying to play it. And I was like, oh, this doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good. And I just, yeah, that's what I started using. And then it was once I got Ableton that I started fucking with both. I would rewire it, do drums on Ableton, and try to do synths on the other one. And then eventually I moved on to Ableton.
so and then you've been on Ableton ever since.
Ever since, man, yeah,
Dang.
because Reason was like, I couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out.
See, I think that's important too. Like kind of finding the right uh, DAW that your brain works with. You know what I mean? Like, cause I know there's a lot of producers that work on Reason and they make great music on Reason. But if that's just not the way your brain works or the way it's laid out, it doesn't work for you. Then maybe try another one. And you find it somewhere else. Because I tried like GarageBand, I tried Logic, but then I fell in love with Ableton too. I was like, okay, this is where I feel comfortable and I feel like I can make the best out of Ableton.
Yeah. So I tried Pro Tools too. And like
Producing
I
on it?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not really
I was
it,
just
right?
like, fuck, I couldn't do it. And then yeah, Logic, I kind of get it. It's a little easier, but like, yeah, Reason, I couldn't. I even, like I said, to this day, I don't even know. Like I work with some people who use Reason. And I'm like, how'd you do that? Like, I don't even know how they get drums on there.
No. There's a lot of really powerful things you could do with Reason, but that's what I'm saying. That like sometimes it's just the way your mind works. It's not really. I know they have like the wires that you can like route and stuff. It's really cool. So shout out Reason, but shout out Ableton, everybody. So everybody has their own way to work, you know. So you started working in Ableton now, right? And so now we have you on Ableton. You're a one man band in a sense. What was the next step basically what made you decide to put out a song? Where did you put out your first song? Was it on SoundCloud, Bandcamp?
Yeah, so I first started putting music out on SoundCloud, and this was like when SoundCloud first came out, and it was pretty much like only like producers and DJs were putting stuff out there at the time. Like I didn't see any bands or anyone putting stuff out. But let me backtrack a little bit. Before that, like I was still committed to trying to make like band music, like, you know what I mean, like, you know, like
Sounding
real
like a rock-
instruments,
like a rock
like
band
real
kinda thing?
instruments
Okay.
and stuff like that. And then I even like met other people, like just going on Craigslist, all this stuff, like trying to still work with other people. I ended up working with some girl, and we wrote like 2 records, and I was her guitarist, and she just sang, and she also played guitar. So it was kind of like, and then I did my first tour with her. I went to New York. I did a few shows. It was kind of cool. And then after that, I was like, okay, like, all right. And then I started. I think I was always going to Coachella. Shout out Coachella because it's happening right now. Just to check out bands. And then I think at one of the shows, I saw Hot Chip, and then I was like, oh shit, like they all have keyboards. So then I started trying to figure out what they were doing, and then that's when I learned about Mastercraft, Justice, and they were all making all that kind of sound. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So then I bought keyboards, and I was trying to emulate what they were doing,
Like
right?
analog synths and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Okay.
So I was trying to emulate what they were doing. So then that's when I started like just focusing on Ableton and Reason. That's why I got it. And then I was like, okay, let me try to make these sounds. And then I was making the shittiest electro music, and I was putting it on SoundCloud. And one of my homies hit me. Well, then this guy was like, "Hey, I like your music. I want to put it on my label." So I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And then I was like, "A fucking label." And yeah, I put out music through him. And I think the music's not even up anymore. I think the label died down, but it was the shittiest stuff. It was bad.
And so you got inspired to do electronic music from going to Coachella.
Yeah, from going to Coachella and watching, like, being at that tent where all like the weird acts were.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out I think that's why it's a good thing to go check out the side acts, you know, or
Yeah.
go check out the smaller stages.
Well, that's
you know,
why I
you
would go
really
to
find
Coachella. I
some-
would go to festivals that had like different kinds of acts, because I would always, you know, I was that guy like that, like knowing about bands before everybody else. I'd be like, "Hey, you heard about these fools?" like and be
I
like,
think that
you need to check these fools out.
that's like an essential DJ trait, you know. I think it's a DJ has to be like a finder of music, and you kind of you show that like, yo, like check out what I found.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like and then you put them on, you know. So we're on electronic music now, and you say you started putting it up on SoundCloud. Did you start putting it up right away as et cetera, et cetera?
No, I started putting it out as, I think it was just like, what was it? I had like a name, Media Boy or something like that. It
Okay.
was weird. It was just like, it was still like with the robot kind of electric, like weird style, and I was just putting it out. And then it wasn't until I picked up, like I started going to a bunch of DJ shows after that I was like, okay, I was putting music out, and then somebody's like, hey, you want to DJ this event? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, well, what's your DJ name? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, well, I'm just going to put DJ Jose. And I was like, no. I was like, that's weird. So I couldn't think of a name. And then I was like, okay, I could play this type of, I think I could play this type of music. I could play this, and that. I was like, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, all right, cool. And then that works. So he was like, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, yeah, but like, make it big. I was like,
All caps.
I was like, yeah,
right?
all caps. I
With
was
the
like, with exclamation points.
point,
I was
yeah.
like, then it'll stand out. And then I think I did good. I didn't play, like, I played some patio. And then he was like, hey, man, do you want to play again next week? I was like, yeah. And he was like, same name? I was like, yeah, why not? So then that name stuck. And then I started putting out music as that name. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So you you got your name working with a promoter and stuff. So, and you said that this guy hit you up because he heard your music on SoundCloud. Because what I wanted to ask is like, so from starting to put music out, like, what was the next step that you started getting booked? You know, so it was your music on there.
No, it was like a long process. So I was going out to clubs just to check out like local local DJs. Like I would go to if you guys are from LA, you guys know the Heist.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
yeah, I would go watch
You would
that.
go to those?
Yeah, I would go to a Heist. I would go watch like which ended up being my homie Score. Like I would go watch Cold Blank, Discotheque, like all these local DJs, and they had their own. At that time, everyone had their own party, so I would try to go meet everyone. I met this one dude who was like, I throw my own parties at the CIA, which is like in the Valley, and it's like this random. It's a museum. It's like a clown museum, and they would just throw shows there. So yeah, I met him at one of the shows, and I was like, "Hey man, I make music," and like he listened to it. He's like, "You want to play the thing?" And it was for free. I was like, "Yeah, let me play," and I would play on the patio, and yeah, and then I started playing there I think every week. I wasn't making money, but he would pay bigger DJs that come sometimes, and like Hyphy Crunk would come and stuff like that.
And you started on the patio. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I wasn't DJing. I was DJing off Ableton.
Oh.
Like I was just triggering. Like I didn't know how to
Okay.
DJ. I didn't know how to DJ until like after like there was a demand for me to DJ. I bought CDJs and I was like, oh shit, I gotta
Just had to
learn.
learn on
I
the
gotta
fly.
learn. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. So so it was a lot of networking then. That kind of like
Yeah, so-
networking and getting out there, showing face.
Back then, yeah, like at least for me, like the way I looked at it was, I went out and then I sought out my favorite DJs, and then somehow I finagle my way where I would like meet them, but like, hey, what's up, da da da, and then through SoundCloud I would send them my music, and then I was like, oh, it's not hitting, like they're not. I knew my music sucked, and then at one point, what I started doing was I started making music that they were playing. Like I went to go watch AC Slater, and he was playing like a lot of like weird 128 stuff, and it was like Dutchy but not Dutchy, like in that sound. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make a song that he'll probably play. So I made a tune, and he ended up putting it in his sets, and then yeah, we became like friends, and that's how I did it with Diplo too. Like I started making music. I started kind of catering to their sound, which I was like, I think this is gonna, and it ended up working, at least for me. And then like showing up to the shows and like talking to them, getting a cramp and shit, talking to them. Yeah, and then like putting a face, because I thought that was important, like for them to be like, oh, that's Jose. Oh yeah, I have a song in my set.
Right.
What else you got? Kind of thing.
Yeah, man, that's crazy, man. You were putting in a lot of groundwork.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the work that I think social media, while it's amazing, social media has its benefits, but I think social media has kind of like taken away some of like that hard work factor that you need to put in. But like you got to go out to shows, you got to go and introduce yourself, you have to go and let them know who you are, and then you went further to go home and make some music for these people, you know? So
Yeah, I figured like the only way they were gonna play my music was if something that fit into their set. So that's what I
yeah.
started doing. You know what I mean? Like that's how I built the relationship about around a bunch of DJs. Like I wasn't making dubstep at all, and I was like, I got to figure out how to make dubstep so this guy could play it. You know what I mean? So it was just like
And how'd you figure it out? Like, how did you say? So you okay? Like, I got to figure out how to make a dubstep track. What did you do to?
I just watched YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't go to school for music. Like it was kind of like how I learned like me playing live instruments. It was just like I on the fly. Like I was just watching videos. I was like, oh, I think I can make it. And it's also by ear. Like it's just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just weird, man. Like it's just a lot.
Yeah.
I have
yeah.
ADD too, so it's just like me looking and then like trying to
Yeah.
do. At first, what I was doing was I was opening Ableton, and for example, I would throw in a dead mouse track, right? And then I would hear the drum, and I would put the drum down. I put the snare down, and I would put them in different
Okay.
in different channels, and then I could see it like, okay, this is how they make it. Like I puzzled it out, and
see.
then I started making music out of their sample, like their tracks, kind of stuff like that. So that's how I learned. I was just on the
That's
fly. Like I'm still learning
crazy.
right now.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So you were kind of like building your own like little sample packs in a
Yeah,
sense.
pretty much in a sense, but
Yeah,
like I was
okay.
making music with their sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, I think it's smart. You know, I think it's good to you know, look at what the people that inspire you are doing, and then kind of like if you're building, you know, emulate that, and then I'm sure you had to start adding your own sound, right? So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
how did you start implementing that? Like, what was your own sound that you started throwing in, or when was it that you started saying like, oh, I'm finding my own sound, where I'm adding my own sound?
It wasn't until like okay, so I was making electro. That's what I first started doing, like electro, and then it became like the Dutch sound, right? When Afrojack came out, and that's what I started doing. And then I remember my friend who was putting out my music. At that point, he became Sazumbuya, and that's the guy from Fight Club and some other dude. And they were like, "Hey, have you heard of this type of music? It's called Mumatone." And then I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, they're just." We were pretty much shitting on it. He's like, "They're just slowing down, Dutch house." And I listened to it. I was like, "Man, this shit sucks."
Yeah. Okay.
And then at one point, one of my friends was like, "Let's try to make one." I was like, "All right." And then we made an original, and I was like, "This shit slaps,
Yeah.
bro." And then after that is when I started like using my own sounds because I was like, okay, I could figure it out. It's a slower beat, and I could see it. Like it's not fast paced where I have to do like all kinds of technical shit. So then I started like, yeah, I got sample packs. I started like kind of fucking with sounds. You know what I mean? Instead of just because before it was just me just dragging stuff and putting it in, putting it in. I
So you
wasn't
started
like
getting a little more intricate.
yeah.
With
So
it.
I
Okay.
started I started chopping it, chopping vocals, making random sounds with like the keyboard, chopping it, doing stuff. I started figuring it out, and then yeah, that's when I started. It wasn't until I started making Moomatone that I kind of started figuring out my own kind of little sound way or whatever.
That's dope. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, like, kind of coming from a like Latin background, just like the rhythms kind of just came to you.
Yeah, and I think that's why I always kept doing it because I was like, oh shit, this shit reminds me of like old school stuff and like stuff that I grew up listening to.
Right.
So it's always my go-to, right? Like that's why I still make it. I think it's my go-to. Like I love making it, but I'm not just a Moomatone DJ. But like when I first started tune, like that's my mindset. Is like, oh, how would it sound with Moomatone? It's like, oh, it
Right.
doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay. And so, see, that's the thing. Like, so one thing with you and your brand and your music is that I know you're very versatile, right? Like, you make dubstep, you make house, you make moombahton. Um, does that come from just being a lover of music, or you know, how do you keep yourself? And I think it's also like it attributes to your longevity, just because what I noticed too is like, okay, like Afrojack, you said Afrojack, and there's Dutch house, so then you started making Dutch house. Like, how do you go about new genres? Like being in the game, like when something new comes out, like how do you adapt?
Well, for me, it's like if I like the sound, then I'm gonna try to do it right. Like it's just, uh, but also I think the main thing when I first started making music was like I felt like maybe I always wanted to produce like just make music. So I shouldn't be held down to one type of sound. Like I always wanted to record like be the producer, you know, for like a band, stuff like that, you know what I mean? Just like being able to tell them like, okay, do this, do that, blah blah blah. So like not staying to one sound, I think, and it helps you out and it widens your
No, yeah, I think being open to different genres really helps you in any. Well, say if you're like really good at sound designing in like the dubstep genre, you could bring that skill over to a genre like Moombahton, where it's maybe a little more rhythmic, but since you have that sound design
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people
background,
that
like
did
you could
that.
do stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of people who did that that were doing dubstep. They started making moombahton, and we're calling it like moombacore, stuff like that. So it
Oh,
was just
okay.
like subgenres of a genre, which is everything's a
Right.
subgenre of a genre.
Right. No, of course. So since you you know you're so good at making so many different kinds of music, when you sit down to make music, what's your inspiration? You know, what gets you into the studio, and like what's the purpose behind you? Like, okay, I'm gonna start this kind of song, or do you just start going at it?
I just start going at it. Like I normally just start with a vocal. I'll listen to a vocal, and that's how I base everything off of. And then like I'll add a drum to it or like a kick. And then if it sounds better slow, then I start working with it slow. If it sounds better fast, then I start working with it fast. And I start my tracks from beginning to end. Like I don't start with a drop. I don't start with like a bridge. Like I start from the intro to like when the cymbals come in, the snares, to the build, to the drop. And that's how I keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think going about it that way, I think, well, I mean, everybody has their own way of working on music, right? But I think, because when I've worked on music and when I start like that too, I think it gives a little bit more of like a more musicality, like more listening ability, because
Ye-
you start thinking about the intro,
yeah.
the breakdown,
The
you
way I
know?
look at it is it gives you more room to breathe as to if you just make a drop, then you're committed to that drop and you have to work around it, and sometimes it won't sound good.
Right.
So I feel like if you work it from the intro, it's gonna all be cohesive and it's gonna mesh right. As to like if you
Right.
just start from a build and a drop, then you're just like, okay, let me try to make this intro, and sometimes it never meshes with it.
No, yeah, 100%, bro. So like, I think it kind of goes back to even just being in bands. When you start making original tracks in a band, like you don't start making a song just by like ripping it at the
Yeah.
drop or something. Like you like there's like the guitar player starts playing the riff, and then the bass player's like, okay, that's a cool riff, and then he starts adding
Just
like a
jam
little,
out, man. You
yeah,
just jam.
and then the drummer starts doing a little rhythm, and then you build the song like that, right? Yeah. So I feel you, and so if
Why you holding the mic so close,
I
dog?
don't know, man, is it? Check, check. All right, here we
I'm,
go.
I'm, I'm,
Covering
I'm
my-
messing with
hey,
him. I'm messing with him.
I'm-
I'm doing it too.
So if you're making a song and you know, say you start with your intro and then you're at your build and then here comes the time to make a drop, right? Do you ever get writer's block?
Always,
Or
man.
How do you go, you know, how do you push through that?
I don't know, man. Sometimes the drop like comes easily, and sometimes it takes months or like weeks. You know what I mean? Or sometimes it could take, you know, a fucking year until like you let it sit, you come back. You know what I mean? Because if you force it, sometimes it doesn't sound good, or you know, you could prematurely put it out, and then later you're like, oh shit, I could have done something different.
Yeah, I think it's important to like know that you can be patient with your music, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
always it's quality, man. It's always quality versus quantity. You know what I mean?
right, like I understand, like I think it is important to be putting out content, right, and putting out music, but at the same time, sometimes I don't know, like I said, everybody works in their own way, so it's okay to just let it breathe, let your ears rest, right? Come back to it in like a week or so.
Yeah. Well, that's how
Two
I
or a
am now.
month.
Yeah, that's how I am now. I'm like more, cause like now it's a time where like you have to release a tune at a certain time. You have to have like artwork. You have to have um, visuals. You have to have the right promo and stuff like that. But like I come from like the SoundCloud times where like I finish a song and I put it up. Finish a song, put it up. Finish a song, put it up. Like one of my biggest tunes was a trap tune, was the Lana Del Rey remix, the Summertime
Yeah,
Sadness.
yeah.
Dude, I did that like in an hour,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
like at 2 in the morning, and I put it up right then and there. And it's like one of my biggest tunes, and like I listen to it now, I'm like, it's so shitty, but I like it. But
That's
yeah, like
cool.
it's
Yeah,
just.
that's great.
But before then, like yeah, it was just I would finish a song, put it up, finish a song, put it up. Now it's just like strategic. You know what I mean? Like
Right, right. Well, I mean, because you do it professionally,
Yeah,
now, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So, um, when it comes to, you know, producing, I think I feel like a lot of producers, they reach like a certain kind of like a barrier, a certain type of point where they break through and they're like, wow, okay, now my productions are sounding better. Did you have a moment like that? Like, oh, like this is what it was that I was missing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, always. I mean, I think I have those experiences every time I release something. You know what I mean? It's just like, or whenever I dabble in something new, like when just did release a new house tune, I'm like, okay, like
So you're always learning.
yeah, I'm always
basically,
learning. Well, I'm always learning. That's why I like collabing with people too, because like I like to see how they work. Like when we collabed on music, I like to see how you work.
Yeah,
Or like
no,
with
yeah.
Decimore in the back, like we work on stuff. Like I like to see how he works, and then like you know what I mean. So then I'm like, oh, that's way better than how I was doing it. Or sometimes I'm like, I was doing it wrong. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you know,
Right.
so always learning, man.
No, bro. And honestly, I think that kind of goes back to also being in bands too, because my first love with music was because I was like experiencing that creation with other people. You know, you're just like vibing out. You're like, yo, you like we just made that. And so when I started doing things on my own, like it was great and all, but then I feel like I lost a little bit of the passion for the music because, you know, music. You vibe with other people, you know. So then once I started collabing again, I was like, yo, like it feels good to be in a room, kind of just feel the energy, and then like you're just bouncing off each
Yeah,
other's
and you're just hyping
vibes.
yourself up. Like you're like,
Yeah,
oh shit, this
like,
sounds
yo,
dope.
This is good, and you're learning like little tips and tricks, you know, like how to do things better. 100%. So,
But I like working by myself too. Like sometimes,
yeah, no, yeah, of
sometimes
course.
just sitting there and like just being focused. And like I said, like my ADD is always like I write something, and if I get stuck, I open another project and I start working on something else. And then I come back to it like once my ears are fresh of that one. I'm like,
Right.
okay, I could do something else. You know what I mean? Or if I start working on something else and I'm like, oh, this will sound good on the other tune,
Yeah.
then I just take it and put it on the other thing.
And being by yourself, like you have the freedom to kind of just like bounce
Yeah,
around and like
yeah.
really mess around and stuff. Yeah, man, no doubt. So, what I want to do is I want to ask you, since we're talking about production and stuff, I want to do something called the plug and shootout. And so I'm gonna name out like an effect, and you tell me your go-to plug-in for that effect, just like off the top.
Okay.
Okay. So, first off, reverb. What's your go-to reverb plugin?
I'm just gonna say this. I use everything Ableton. I don't use any
Oh,
VSTs.
so then we're done with the shootout.
Yeah. I honestly
stock sounds, I guess.
I use everything Ableton. Like sometimes I'll use like sausage fattener.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or in the Nicky Romero the
Kickstart.
Kickstart
For sidechain, okay.
But for the most part, or dimension expander. But for the most part, like I use like my EQ. I use Ableton. I'm able to work with it. I think like I'm just used to it. And if I can make it sound good with what I have, then like why add other stuff?
No, yeah, no doubt. I think it's really important to kind of really make use of the tools that you have in front of you, because I think a lot of people try to spend thousands and thousands on plugins, which by all means, you know, like if you feel like that will make your
I mean, it
music
does.
sound better,
It
like
does.
100%.
I know a lot of producers that like they'll open stuff and I'm like, damn, what is that? And then like I see them fucking with it, I'm like, nah. Cause see, like I said, I have like my ADD doesn't let me sit there and like fuck with shit. Like I'm just like, nah, I gotta keep going. Like with what sounds good, it's gonna sound good to me. I think it'll sound good. You know what I mean? So like, if I could make it sound good without having that, having to fuck with it and spend time on it, then I'm just gonna use what I have.
No doubt.
I mean, you see me.
No,
like,
yeah, no, yeah, I know, yeah, of course. And so, and that's what I honestly, that was one thing that I learned from you, that it was more about, does it sound good? Like, pay attention to the way it sounds and the way it's and how it's included into the whole record, as opposed to trying to be so technical and like kind of being, you know, nerdy about it and stuff. It's like, no, like, does it sound good? Or what do you need to make it sound good? You might not need these expensive plugins. You just need like a little distortion or something that you could just add with some stock plugins, you know?
And then also what I do too is like I'll open like synths, like I'll open a Spire, you know what I mean, or I'll open Massive, or you know, I'll open like a synth thing, and I'll hit a few sounds, and then I'll export it, and then I fuck with the audio. You see me, like
Yeah.
I'm more of a
You
audio
work
guy.
more with audio, right?
I
Yeah.
work with audio, and like I can make the sound that you're working on, twisting all these shit and doing it. I could do it with just fucking with the wave.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I do, and I think it just keeps my mind busy. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, and well, you just want to keep it moving too, right? You just want to keep creating. So okay. So as far as the plug-in shootout, you know, so etc. is a big supporter of stock, or not stock, but just so you know, like what you have in front of you. You know, just make it
I'm
sound
not
good.
poor.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ESTs, guys, but I like keeping it simple. I think like less is more, kind of
Right. Yeah. No doubt. What about sample packs? Sample pack site. Do you have like a
thing. Yeah, so
go-to?
I use a lot of Splice. Splice has been like the best, at least for now. I remember like Somatic sends me a bunch of stuff. I use that stuff, but what I've learned is that like everyone's starting to use the same fucking samples. So like you have to fuck with a bunch of different shit. Like the only stuff that I use for samples now is like either drums or like just percussion. You know what I mean? Like sounds, I try to like either fuck with do it myself or do something else. But Splice is awesome. By the way, I got a sample pack there.
Yeah, right. No, yeah. Make sure you check out the Splice,
yeah, Splice.
etc.
Splice for the most part, they have everything. And yeah, Splice and Somatics and I think Loop Masters. There's a lot of people who have good
Loop
stuff.
Masters is good. Before Splice, because I know Splice is a little bit newer.
Yeah.
What was your like? How did you get samples? Were you hitting up other DJ producers? And
Nah,
stuff, or were you
I was legit putting like I said, putting the tracks in Ableton and taking what I needed from the track.
Okay, that's right.
So that's what I was doing. So a lot of my early tracks, you'd be like, oh, that's a Dead Mouse kick. Like, shout out.
But it
Dead Mouse.
sounds good. You know, if it sounds good, you know, why fight it? All right, so we have you producing music now. We have you on Ableton. We have you getting hit up for some gigs, right? So if we go back to playing out, you're doing some clubs.
Well, I was doing local, like it wasn't a club. It was like a fucking museum, right? Like,
Okay.
It was just
Yeah. So what was the process of building that up? You know, what was the process of you going from DJing the patio to maybe opening the main stage and then now doing support for the headlining act? Did you go through that, or did your music just take you to the top?
Yeah. So what happened was I was still working. I was working at Volkswagen, and I worked there for like 9 or 10 years. And during my lunch, I would just take my laptop and start like go to the back and start working on fucking music. So then I was still doing the same thing, like uploading it to SoundCloud. And then that's when like Diplo found me and he's like, yeah, I like your shit. Let's put some stuff out on this label, on his label, which was mad decent. So I started putting stuff out through there. And then I started meeting, I met Bro Safari through SoundCloud. And then that's when I was making Moomatone still. And then, I mean, I still am, but that's when I first started making Moomatone. And I had some good tracks. And then Bro Safari ended up putting me through with the agent. And then the agent was like, man, I see potential in you. Like, let me be your agent. So I was like, cool. What is that? And then he was like, oh, I could get you shows. I was like, oh, sick. So then he had me on his roster, but like for 2 years, I wasn't doing anything. And it's fine. Like, I didn't really care. All my homies were DJing. Like, I went to Miami, I think, too. Like, I went to Miami for Miami Music Week just to hang out with the homies and watch to see what they were doing. And I was like, damn, like, that's pretty cool. And then I had to come back early because I had to work. So it was just like, it was a process. And like, I never really thought that I would DJ or like, you know, travel and stuff like that big. Because I was just making music like during lunch and stuff like that. So then I found out Diplo's studio was like right next to where I worked. So then he was like, come through. So after work, I would come through, work on music there, leave, and then then that's when I met Brills. And then that's when Brills and we met because we wanted, Whiskey P put us together, and he was like, hey, I think you guys will make a good Moomatone track together. So I was like, cool. So we sat in the studio, and we were like trying to make some Moomatone stuff, and it didn't sound that good, and then we just sat there and we're like, hey, man, and this is like when Floss just came out with Original Dawn.
Yeah, that would be like 2012.
Yeah.
Because I think I know the Brills track that you're talking about. I think that's how I actually found out about you.
So yeah, Floss put out Original Dawn, and then Bauer put out one of his tunes. I forgot which one. Not Harlem Shake, maybe. It was a trap tune, and then we were like, "Hey, have you heard?" No, he put out dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
So then we were like, "Shit!" Like we were like, "Let's try to make something like this," and he was like, "Okay, cool." I think we're like, "It's trap." So then we made Bauer. So we kind of like followed Bauer. We made Bueller. Sorry, we made Bueller, and we followed the dum dum, but ours was like bow 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 bow. So it was like, okay, cool. So we made that, and then we made Swoop. And then West.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Swoop,
so then Diplo's like, oh, shit, I want to put this out. Because they started playing it. So then Diplo's like, I want to put it out on Mad Decent. So he put it out. And then once they put it out, I think it took like 4 or 5 months. And then there was demand. Like, they were like, oh, they want to book you. And I was like, oh, shit. So I was like, cool. Like, what day? And like, I was working. Like, I still had a job. And then I started missing. Like, I think my first show was at Avalon. And I played for before Excision. I opened for Excision. And at this point, I still was doing, I was like, I had a MIDI Like I was still on Ableton. I didn't know how to fucking DJ. So I was doing it on that, and then like yeah, the show went good. I played a bunch of trap tunes. My mixing fucking sucked, but it was good that it was on Ableton because it was just triggering. Like it was just,
Okay, yeah.
everything was easy. It was just like volume up, volume down.
Right,
Like it
right.
wasn't really DJing. And then yeah, and then after that, my agent, because my agent has Excision, so then he was like, hey, you want to do a few other shows? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So then I started missing work, and then when I came back one time, they're like, hey man, you're fired. And I was like, what? And then I was like, shit. So then that's kind of what took me the step to because like I said, I didn't think I would make this like a job. I thought it was just something fun. You know what I mean? Like, cause like on weekends, like I said, I was trying to get booked for Hang the DJs, and then they were like at Florentine Gardens. It was like me and Skrillex. We're like, we'll do it for fucking drink tickets. And they're like, nah. And we're like, all right, cool. So we would leave, like Skrillex and I would leave, and we'd go somewhere else and shit like that. But like, yeah. So I didn't think it would become anything. And then yeah, eventually, like I got fired, and then my wife we were gonna have her second kid, and she was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, oh well, let me try it. Let's see if this works out. And then my agent put me on my first tour with the Dirty Phonics, and that was opener. It was like I was the first guy, and then it was Le Castlevania, and then Crisley, and then Dirty Phonics, and like that was my first bus tour. And then after that, like I've been DJing since, man.
Wow.
Like
So
I
you
was
made
like,
it
fuck
work.
it, like make it like just took a step, man. I was like, okay, here's the window, and like I said, I didn't think I would make this a career, and you know.
That's awesome, man.
I thought I was just
What
gonna
a story.
I thought I was just gonna be making music and like, oh, Diplo knows me, that's cool. Maybe I could write for him, kind of thing. Maybe I could write for other people, or like maybe this somehow could get me into like someone who's in pop and I could make a pop beat, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, but no. Then there was a demand for me to DJ, and then yeah, I had to learn how to DJ.
And that was that festival trap sound, right?
Yeah, it was the trap sound that got me into it, and then I started incorporating my moontone back. Like I started bringing the old sound and like try to bring the vibes.
That's cool. So as far as like your agent playing a part, I think this is something really important that, somebody coming up that they really worry or they put a lot of focus into this, finding a manager or finding an agent. Do you feel that it's really essential to have a manager or an agent? Do you feel like maybe it's like you could have done it yourself, or like, what would you tell to somebody that's like, I need to find a manager? Like, do you recommend that?
Well, the way I always tell everyone when they ask me is a manager is gonna find you, right? Like, the more you're looking for a manager, like I think if you're looking for a manager, you're thinking they're gonna blow you up, right? And the manager can only work with what they have. You know what I mean? So if you don't have enough interest to bring a manager in, then you don't. Like it's you don't need a manager at that point. The manager's only gonna come to you when you have options, when you're busy, when you're getting a bunch of gigs, stuff like that. He manages your day to day, stuff like that. And if you're coming into it thinking like, oh, if I get a manager or agent, then I'm gonna be doing stuff, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, I think in a sense a manager comes into your brand to manage something.
Yeah.
But they got to manage something, right? That's what they're needed. But if they have nothing to manage, then they have no job, or they have no purpose in what you're doing, right?
So like so my agent found me, like Bro Safari recommended me, and he came to me. Like I wasn't looking for an agent. I didn't know what the fuck. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't really thinking that I would be traveling or making a career out of it. So they found me, and everything happened organically. I think it's important to realize that everything happens organically. Like if the more you force something, the more you're not gonna get it, and the more it's gonna feel like fuck. Like why don't I have a manager? Like you're gonna get more frustrated with yourself, and then you lose some sort of passion. Like I think it all happens organically. Whether it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I know some people it took a long time for them to blow up. Like Valentino Khan, he's the biggest guy forever, right? Like we started making music at the same time. And it took him a little bit longer than me, and now he's like fucking surpassed me, and I'm fucking happy for him. You know what I mean? So some people, you just it has to happen organically, man.
Everybody has their own path,
Yeah,
too.
exactly, exactly.
I like to say that, you know, like you got to have like blinders on. You just got to be focused on your own end goal. You know, you can't be distracted by what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah,
around you.
100%. I mean, I've been there where I get distracted. I'm like, why the fuck does that person do that? You know what I mean? But I think that's when you lose focus of what you're doing. And I think, like I said, it has to happen organically. Like if a manager finds you out, like comes to you, that means he sees something and he could be focused on you. If you're out there like putting your EPK or whatever out, just trying to find anyone, like it's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like that means that I mean, I get the grind, like the grind is important, but like I think it has to happen organically, or like that's how it happened to me. So I think that's how, and to most of my DJ friends, that's how it also happened. So I feel like I guess I'm old school. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important to also like to focus on the art and like just focus on the stuff you're putting out. You know what I mean? Like don't worry so much about finding a manager or somebody to put you on. Focus on creating something that people want to enjoy or something that people want to come out and see. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? Like you got to get people out.
I mean, I get a lot of DMs too asking me, it's like, hey, how do I find a manager and stuff? And like, it's always the same thing. It's like, hey, man, they'll find you. Like, I get a lot of people are like trying to make it, and especially now with the scene having so many DJs and so much music. That's fucking awesome, and everyone's trying to get their shine. It's just like, man, you just gotta wait a little bit, like.
Right. And so, do you think it's important as far as like getting more shows? Right. I think it's something. Actually, I think this was a question on our Academy Instagram that they were like, you know, how do I get booked? How do I get clubs to want to book me? And I know you went about it in a sense more with the SoundCloud. And you guys started getting hit up by promoters, but how do you keep that trend of getting booked?
You pretty much for that, you got to stay relevant, right? Like you got to make music that makes people still want to come out and see you. You have to have something that they like, whether or not necessarily music, because there's DJs who, you know, like who don't even produce, you know what I mean? They have something funny going on or something that like content or something like that. So it's just how do you stay relevant these days to be able to get booked by people? And then also like your manager and agent play a part at that point too, because you're not reaching out, like you're not going to be one, like I don't reach out to venues that book me. Like my agent comes to me like, oh, this festival wants you, blah, blah, blah. So it's just demand and consistency.
So you guys got to work as a team, right? Like, so you got to put in your part in being relevant, and then they got to put in their part in like letting people know and shopping you around, right?
Right now, so like before it was just music, right? So like now it's you got to stay with content, music, like fucking TikTok, like however you fucking whatever you got to do, man. Networking still, like I still go out to shows. You know what I mean? I still go out to support homies, like and meet new people, like stuff like that. Like that's what helped me in the beginning too, is like just going out all the time, talking to people. But yeah, man, it's just trying to stay relevant, build a demand, and that's how you get booked, man. If it's unless like you know the promoter,
like personal relationship kind of thing. Yeah. So I mean, and so now being relevant, I think is a big target with the social media, right? And I think we were talking about it earlier. You know, so like how big is social media a part of like what you do on a day-to-day basis? You know, how do you decide what to post, or you know, what's your approach to social media?
It's crazy because like I know a lot of like my friends or like DJ friends, they don't even run their socials anymore. Like they have a social media manager, but like I don't even let my manager fucking go in my Instagram or like, not because I'm hiding something, but but just because like I like to I like it to be like more personal. Like it's coming from me. Like I'll post my kids, I post, you know, whatever. So it's just, I don't know. It's just whatever I think is funny, I'll post. A lot of my stuff is like dumb and funny, or like it's just about coffee. So it's just.
But you post this stuff kind of keeping in mind, like, yo, I gotta like be relevant with my fans. I gotta connect. I gotta give them something to kind of like attach to, and like, you know.
I also reply to everyone, and I DM like whoever DMs me, I'll write them back. If someone adds me, I write them back. Like I try to keep it like on a personal level too. Like I want everyone to know that I'm like, you know,
it's you running
that
it,
it's
right?
me.
Yeah,
it's
you.
Not necessarily me running it, but like I'm listening and I'm paying attention. So it's just it's every day, man. You gotta know what to post, fucking memes, whatever, just something funny.
So you don't have like any kind of like formula, or you don't have like any kind of schedule, like, okay, I gotta post this, or I gotta post this amount of times a day. You just do it.
Nah, I just post whatever. That's why like my socials are like kind of up and down, but at least it's me.
I know, yeah, it's personable. You know what I mean? That's cool, man. So, um,
I also don't want to flood the fucking the
Right,
timeline.
yeah.
Like I feel like if like there's people who I open and they fucking post like 5 times a day, like videos. I'm like, all right, come on, dog. It's like
right, and then I
I
feel
mean, it
like
works for them. I'm not gonna knock it, but I'm just like that. I can't do that.
I mean,
can't.
I notice when I post a lot, I think my views
post
actually
a
go
lot,
down.
dog. You post a
no,
lot.
sometimes I post a lot and it goes down. So it's like, don't post too much. I think people just like just skip. You know,
Over
just
you,
skip
they're
through
over
it.
you, dog.
All right, so I got like two more things, right? So you've performed at the biggest festivals in the world. You know, how do you approach a set like that? When somebody tells you, et cetera, you're gonna about a DJ Tomorrowland, what do you do next? You're like, okay, I gotta prepare my set. What do you take into account? Do you like go listen to what they're listening to in Europe? Do you no? You just
I play my set. Like I play what people are gonna. If people are coming to the stage to see, etc., like they want to see what I play, right? Like what they know, they listen to, or like what I play on the radio, stuff like not necessarily on the radio because I play a lot of stuff, but just like from what I know from my sets, like I'll work it. And for the most part, you've been there. Like I wing my sets. Like I play off the crowd. Like I try to DJ. So like I'll have like 10 songs maybe that I know that I'm gonna start the set with, and then after that, then I just start winging it. Like I'm like, okay, I vibe off the crowd pretty much, and I think that's important because I feel like
No
if you have a whole set already lined up, like you know sometimes songs are hit or miss, man.
yeah. Sometimes you gotta like call an audible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like okay, they're not feeling this upbeat stuff, but they're feeling like the more maybe more.
And there's times too you see me like where I'm like, damn, I had this plan, but like maybe I'll open with something else. Like I always like I was messing with myself.
Right, especially with like other DJs and stuff, like on the like openers and stuff. Yeah, no doubt. It's cool. Okay, so and I guess at least the last question for me, and after this we're gonna open it up to questions from anybody here. How do you go about balancing a normal life and being a DJ? You know, I know you're a father, you have kids, you have a wife.
I have kids.
Yeah,
playing.
just found out. You know, how do you go about balancing?
Hey man,
this kind of
it's
stuff.
just it's the good thing is that my wife has been with me since I first started in bands, so she knew like music was my thing. So like she kind of gives me the freedom to like when I need to work on music, she's like, all right, he needs to work on music, and I sit there and I'll lock myself up for like 8 hours or whatever it is, and she can handle it. And the kids, they know too. Like I think the kids were when they were little when I started touring heavy. So they kind of know when I leave, it's for work. You know what I mean?
You
so
grew up with it a little bit,
So
okay.
they know. So it's like it's not hard. Like I think they understand too. And it's weird that some of their friends know who I am too. They're like, oh, that's your dad. I'm like, oh, shit.
That's cool. Yeah,
That's
I'm
weird.
sure they brag about you all the time.
Nah, they don't. They're embarrassing me. No, but yeah, no. I mean, it was in the beginning because like when I first started touring, we had 2 babies and they were tiny, and I was like, oh, I'm leaving her by herself with the kids. But no, she was able to work it, and now it's like the kids are older. They go to school. When they go to school, I'm able to work and work on music, and she goes to work or she does something, and I'm able to work, and thankfully like it's been working.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
So I think it for anybody listening or anything, anybody that wants to take something away is to find a supportive spouse,
Yeah, man.
supportive
I love my wife.
significant other. Yeah. All right, you guys. So, that's all I have for etc. So if anybody has any questions out there, feel free to raise your hand. Any questions?
Don't do it. What's up,
Yeah.
man? What's up, Chris? Jose.
I was curious how you feel about did you ever do demo submissions for labels?
Yeah,
so the question from Chris was, have you ever done demo submissions before you were already blown up? Did you submit demos?
I did, yeah. I submitted a bunch of demos, and like a lot of people never got back to me. You know what I mean? And it was always, yeah. I don't know. I don't remember any. I think even now I still send demos out. When I send a song out and I send it like to shop it for a label, I guess
Right.
it's a demo.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to. I think the only person who ever wrote me back was Matt Decent, and they were just like, nah. or like pass or something like that. But no, I think for the most part, like I don't know, because I guess I was in so early, like I wasn't even thinking of demos at that point. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No.
I know when I was in bands, I did demos, like did CDs, and we shopped them to labels, and nothing ever came of it. But yeah, I mean,
You came up in a really dope age of EDM. You know,
was
like
like-
you
it
were
was like a
you
small
can't, like
window.
honestly, when EDM was like really blowing up, you were like a part of those people making music that was blowing up EDM. You know?
Yeah, it was a small window. There was like a few people who like Deoro was there too, but he was tonic at that point, and it was just like a few of us and that were local that were just like
Just
supporting
doing
each
their
other.
thing, just putting out music.
Yeah, and I think I think what happened with me was, like I said, it was just I was putting out music all the time on SoundCloud. Like I was doing like 3 or 4 times a day, and it was just like whenever I finished it, I uploaded it. Finished it, uploaded it, and that's. I mean, I think if you even go back on my SoundCloud, check the first songs, they're still there. Like you know what I mean? And I was. How would I say? I wasn't sending demos out. What I was doing was sending them out to radio shows. I was sending my music out to like Kissy Sellout in Europe, like BBC Radio 1, stuff like that. And when he would play it, I was like, oh shit. And then I would cut out the section where he played it and he talked over, he's like, this is et cetera, et cetera. And I would post that clip also on my SoundCloud. So I would kind of hype myself up. You know what I mean? So
Nice.
yeah.
Like guerrilla marketing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Any
Now
other
it's like you got to post 4 or 5 times on TikTok. I can't do that shit, man. It's too much.
TikTok's tough, man. It's cool though.
Hey,
Yeah.
Desamore posts over there. He
Oh
knows.
yeah, yes.
He's a TikTok master.
Desamore got TikTok down. TikToker. I'm a TikToker.
Influencer.
Any more questions? Yeah. So if the question was that if you were in a room in with people that have never heard your music, what would you show them?
Like which one of my songs would I play?
I guess maybe that identifies you more. You know, like what? do you
Yeah, I'd probably play a
identify with?
Moombahton track. I'd probably play maybe something old like Suspects, like one with Bro Safari. I don't know. Maybe something. That's a good question. Maybe Swoop. It depends, man. Cause like I think I would have to be in the room and like see like the
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
Cause I'd be like, man, maybe this goes too hard for them, or like maybe this is too whack, or like maybe there's no Latinos here. I can't play no Moombahton.
Right.
Something like that. But,
No, but
I don't know, that's hard.
I think that's what's cool about Etc. though. He's got like he's got such a big catalog of different stuff that like he could be like, okay, these people want to vibe to some dubstep. These people want to vibe to some Moomba.
Also, I think it's very important, just so you guys know, like if you're coming in to produce, like don't be limited to by one sound. I feel like everything should fall under your umbrella. There's been times where I've had managers in the past who are like, stay in your lane, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like no, like I think a producer should be able to produce any type of music they want. You know what I mean? And that's what makes you a producer. And then you don't want to be pigeonholed, because there's times too where like they'll pitch me to some sort of festival and they're like, oh, well, he only plays Moombahton. It's like, no, I don't. Like I make Moombahton, and it's like a large part of what I'm like my history and what I make. And I do play some Moombahton, but that's not all I play. You know what I mean? So you don't want to get pigeonholed into one thing. So if you want to, I would say, if you're starting to make music now, like be open to other avenues. Like you don't want to start, like I know there's dubstep DJs who like try to make something else and they're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like I had a homie who was making dubstep, his whole life, and then he started making house, and they fucking shunned his ass, and he had to make a side project for that thing just so like they wouldn't give him a hard time. So I think it's always, and I think that's what I love about my project too, like that I'm able to make all kinds of music and be proud of it, whether people are like, oh, well, why don't you just make Moombahton or stick to trap or house or whatever. So I think that's just very important.
No doubt, man. I think it's hard to stick to certain genres, especially when you, like I said, you're just like a lover of music. Like I really can't just stick to one. Like when I sit down, I make whatever I feel, whatever I'm inspired to make.
Yeah.
I know we had another question over in the back.
So nowadays, if a friend, when you're a brand new DJ and a friend introduces you to someone who has gigs, someone who like has a following already, how do you cultivate that relationship as a mentor?
So the question was, when you're a brand new DJ and you get introduced to maybe a more experienced or advanced DJ, how do you cultivate that relationship?
Like you're
Right.
saying, like how do you make it like better? Like how do you?
Like, what do I ask for? Like, what they ask me things like, how do I make that a relationship?
Well, I mean, it depends on like what kind of relationship you want to make. Like there's I would say, I mean, keep it formal. Like, um, you know, it's always important to. I mean, I meet people like that all the time, and I just feel like it's just always, if they ask the right questions and just give them like the real answer. You know what I mean? Like, don't, like, I try not to bullshit people. When people ask me stuff, like, I keep it honest, but I also don't like never put people down either. I'm always like, okay, this is the way I did it. I can only give people experience from how I did it, and if I want to keep that friendship, like, I'll, you know, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's be respectful and
Yeah, be respectful.
you know, be real. Don't be weird.
Yeah,
You know,
don't be weird, man. Don't be
don't be
DMing that
weird.
person.
Yeah,
Don't be DMing, or like don't DM my friends.
right. Like, yeah, just be normal. Like, kind of treat them like a like a respectful.
We're all
producer.
people, man. Like
Yeah,
at the end of
so-
the day, like we're all, yeah. I love meeting new people. Like, you know, after this, if you guys DM me, like I'll write you guys back. Like, you know what I mean? If you guys see me at a show, I'll be like, "What's the fuck is up?" You know what I mean? Like I'm like I go, like I hang
Yeah,
out with everyone.
yeah.
Like I'm not. So it just depends too. It also depends on who it is. You know, like on because a lot of people like to keep their stuff private. They don't like talking to people, and like so it just depends.
Yeah, I think it's just being cool and being respectful, and then also I think it's important to not like try to off the jump be asking for things.
Yeah,
like,
don't do
Don't
that.
be like right off the jump like, hey bro, can you get me booked, or can I open for you, or can you play, like just be cool and just like vibe it out, and then
Why people ask you for stuff or what?
My first introduction, my friend introduced me to like some, you know, really on and poppin' like producer, and they're DJing, they have gigs and everything. But like I'm literally an infant DJ. Like I have
Right.
my DD, I always call DDJ SP3, and like the only music I have is anything I gather from SoundCloud or like all the DJ pools. So I'm, you know, I'm not that like advanced, right? But then he introduced me anyways, like via Instagram,
Yeah, of course.
via DMs. So I didn't know how to like ask for any. They're like, what, you know, what type of genre do you play? What?
Oh, that's all. You could ask that kind of questions. Like I feel like that's all stuff that's pretty cool.
well, yeah, well, so he just just because we don't have a mic on the guest, so it just it was just asking, like, I think just how do you build a relationship when when you're a brand new DJ, right? Yeah.
Like how do you ask for advice and stuff like that? Yeah, it's just if it's a normal question, yeah, I feel like just don't be like, yo, like let me get that ID. Or like stuff like, or like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, let me get guest list. Like that's weird. But I think if it's like an honest question, like you're like, hey, what type of music do you play? Or like, how do you start off a set or something like that? Then yeah, like that's all pretty formal.
Yeah, I think
Pretty
DJs
formal.
are willing to help too,
Yeah,
just
of
because they understand. Like, I mean, we heard his story right now. Like, he came from DJing patios too. You know what I mean? So you understand that, you know, being a new DJ is, you know, you don't just start off being a poppin' DJ. So, you know, when you ask for help, as long as it's respectful and kind of honest and it's not weird, then like, yeah, you get a. I'm sure you can ask
Yeah,
him anything.
100 yeah, you
he'll
could-
respond and he'll give you some honest feedback.
Yeah, you'll get pointers, like as long as it's not like weird or like you're coming off aggro, you know what I mean? Or don't send a tune and be like, hey, can I put that you're supporting it? It's like, hey bro, I haven't even listened to the song yet. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's like offhand, I feel like, but it depends. Also, when
No doubt.
people send me music, like I'll support it if I like it, you know what I mean? Like, but if I don't, like I'll be like, oh man, like I don't know, like I can't, you know, and I'm honest, you know what I mean? Because people were like that shit to me. Like I'll send somebody music and they'll be like, nah.
Yeah,
So I think like that's the way I learned too. Is just like, you know, it kind of builds you up a little bit.
Of course. Any more questions out there? Yeah.
Earlier you said that you let agents look for you, right? So once that agent finds you, what's your part of the deal? What do you bring?
So after the question was, after an agent finds you, what's your part of the deal? What do you have to contribute in order to keep that agent around, or, you know, to make it work?
Okay, so what you gotta do is you gotta keep making music, obviously, and like the music has to like not necessarily be relevant, but you kind of still wanna. That's where your job is to stay relevant, whether it's social media, whether it's you know, like networking still, building relationships, having music that's out like on video games, commercials, stuff that you still have to be in the ear of people, because if you stop writing music and like you kind of die out, then the agent's he's not gonna be able to push you, because he's gonna push another artist that's more relevant than you. You know what I mean? Because the agent is gonna have like 10 artists with him, you know. So it's just depending on where you fit too. So it's just you have to stay a little relevant, and you got to be consistent when making music, and yeah.
Yeah, that's something important. You know, it's a really important thing that a manager finding you or an agent finding you. That doesn't mean like, okay, it's time to kick back and relax. Like, okay, I gotta no, like that means that somebody believes in you, and that means okay, now you got to go 10 times harder to give this person something to put out there. You know,
But no, like there's also times where like you could keep making music and try to stay relevant, and if the music doesn't hit, or like then they have nothing to work with, right? So it's all a matter of too, like how you perform live. Like, is your show good? Like, what are you bringing to like, your visuals? Like, it's how you you build yourself as a brand. Is your brand still moving? You know what I mean? Like, so that's how you kind of you know, because I have friends too who make, like I said, make music, and they're and like it's just not hitting, and the agent can't really put them on anything because it's not, you know, it's not. They'll put someone else who's gonna make them more money, kind of thing. The agent's always gonna be looking for money, unless like the agent is only with you, then he's focused on you. If the agent has like 10 other artists, then you know he's gonna put somebody else before you who's working more. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a one man for all.
Yeah, of course. Any more questions out there? No? 3, 2, 1. All right. All right, you guys, thank you very much. Big shout out, big thank you to etc for being here.
Yeah.
That was awesome, man. I mean, I learned
Thanks,
a lot.
man.
I hope everybody take away some really good stuff from this. Once again, make sure you guys check out Famous DJ Academy on Instagram, website. Make sure you guys follow IMETC on Instagram. And
Twitter too, man.
and Twitter, TikTok. Well, TikTok, right? We got to go on
no,
TikTok. Or follow Decimore on TikTok, too.
Yeah. He
All
posts
right,
a
you
lot.
guys-
He posts a lot.
Thank you guys very much. Big
Thanks for
shout out to everybody.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll answer whatever you guys want.
Yeah, we'll be sticking around for some pictures. Yeah, we'll be sticking around for some pictures. Make sure you guys tag Famous DJ Academy and etc. on your pictures. And thank you very much. Oh, yeah, one more shout out to our sponsors. So big shout out to Orbit Event Rentals. Big shout out to Mind Records. And big shout out to Frosted Designs, Famous DJ Agency, and Famous DJ Academy. We out. Thank you.
Whoop, 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 whoop.